Welcome back to Autism at Home. This is our 28th unit and it's all about some tips when it comes to food challenges for children with autism. My name is Jochebed Isaacs, and in the previous lesson, we just covered a more natural approach to increasing food choices. While in this lesson, we're going to take a more formal, structured approach, which is to actually build food tolerance. Now, a quick quiz before we begin. What are the 3 key ABA strategies that have been emphasized in all our Autism at Home units? Okay, hopefully you're able to list them out accurately. Breaking skills down, pairing learning with reinforcement, and providing sufficient practice. Now, do keep these strategies in mind as we discuss the steps to break down the skill of eating, from trying new foods to eventually improving children's food repertoire. In this lesson, we will guide you through the different strategies that you could implement with your child to increase their success. Now, behavioral interventions have been concluded to be effective when addressing food or eating related challenges. And to get started, hopefully by now, you'd have had all the information on your child's current eating habits and challenges. What they eat all the time, what they eat sometimes, what they don't prefer to eat, what they will not eat, as well as the different personal requirements around their food, such as needing the food to be of a certain temperature, food needing to be only a specific color or texture, or served in a specific plate before they can be consumed. Having all this information will help you decide your next steps. Now, to start breaking it down for your child, target foods that are similar to what your child would typically eat. For instance, if your child will only eat mashed foods, you have quite a few options. Just mash your targets. You could mash some bananas, mash some apples, or even porridge of slightly thicker texture, and you could maybe try to mix in some vegetables and protein. However, if your child's preference is mashed food of a more savory taste, then of course mashed fruit like bananas and apples are not the right direction. If you're able to start with something like porridge, you can begin with plain rice porridge first and assess your child's response across different meal times and across a few days. If your child is able to consume them almost all the time, it's now safer to introduce other ingredients in the porridge. But it's important to note that this should be done very gradually. You could add maybe like 1 vegetable ingredient like a bit of carrot, broccoli, and some protein like chicken. But do take extra caution and try to cut them really thin. Try not to make it too visually colorful if your child is used to seeing it very plain on their plate. Basically, we are breaking it down for the child to learn new foods and starting with the ones that are visually similar to what they are already eating at present. And every time you add something new, do assess your child's response across a few meal times. Now we can then take an even more formal approach to building a child's food tolerance through a desensitization approach. Essentially, the key steps would be that we break it down and build it up using the following very small steps. Being willing to have the new food in the room and just tolerate it. So not even next to it, new room, in the room. Tolerating the food on the table but away from the child. Then gradually tolerating the food in front of the child. Then tolerating the food on their own plate. Then being willing to touch the food with a utensil, maybe then their finger, maybe 2 fingers, and even their whole hand. Then maybe even picking up the food. Then gradually touching the food on their own body before they touch it on their lips. Touching the food on their lips, then progressing to their tongue, and increase the time duration of holding it there. Then biting it and letting it go, progressing to biting it, chewing it, and then spitting it out, but then only attempting to swallow it. Phew, that's a lot of steps. And here's a guide of how you can teach your child utilizing imitation and positive reinforcement. Once your child is able to tolerate seeing new food on the table, you may begin by expecting your child to touch it. So you can give them the instruction, do this or follow me, or any variation as long as your child understands that they are supposed to copy your action. You can do the same step across a few days with different foods before moving on to the next step, which is to imitate you picking up the food. Again, across a few days with different foods until consistent success is observed. Then follow the progression. Food touching their closed lips, touching their teeth, touching their tongue, putting it into their mouth. At this stage, they are allowed to take the food in and out of the mouth, as the expectation would be to only put it in their mouth but not to swallow it yet, yeah? Thereafter, your child should then be expected to swallow the food, again imitating your action. Now, you may need to break it down by starting with food that resembles their preferred food as close as possible before the final step of the progression, which would be to expand the food choices. A few very important factors include ensuring your child's success through this approach. Your child's cooperation is a critical prerequisite. So the first then visual should help communicate this expectation clearly. If your child cooperates better with one parent more than the other, consider working on this approach with that said parent first. Once your child is able to start eating new foods, generalization can be done with the other parent. Imitation is also a key prerequisite. If your child's imitation is not yet consistent, you may want to strengthen that first before attempting to build their tolerance to food. High-level and preferably exclusive reinforcement is needed to ensure your child's success. Keep some of the best reinforcers only for food tolerance. This means that in order for your child to access these rewards, they have no choice but to imitate your actions with the food. Clear expectations will also help both parents and children to achieve success. At this step, we're working on expanding their repertoire, so your child is not necessarily expected to finish the food on their plate. You could consider placing one bite of the new food once your child is at the end of swallowing, so that their plate will be visually empty once they have swallowed the targeted bite. There are also some additional tips and strategies for parents to implement with their children. First is what is called differential attention, which basically means that all attention is given to the child when they do demonstrate appropriate mealtime behaviors, while ignoring the inappropriate behaviors if they are observed. So when your child successfully tries a new food, which is an expected behavior, you can give them a huge positive reaction like a big hooray, or you can blow party poppers or do a big silly dance for them, or anything at all to celebrate them. However, if they spit out the food as it enters their mouth, you can remain calm and assist them to clean up and continue. Should the trials end at this moment, the child may learn to refuse the food by spitting it out. Secondly, positive reinforcement for eating is beneficial to help boost your child's success. If your child is mainly motivated by food, you could consider offering a sweet treat to them after a successful attempt at trying a new food. But of course, this reward should be given in a very tiny, teeny size, and if the rewards are given in high frequency. As they progress, you could reduce the frequency of reinforcement, but in greater sizes. Some visuals like the first then card could definitely help. And another technique that parents could implement is one called appetite inducement, which essentially means to try to trigger hunger or appetite. This involves not feeding your child with any snack or treats 2 hours before the meal time. Now, this may sound a little bit challenging to some parents, and some may not have the heart to do it, but the idea is for your child to be a little bit more hungry, that they would be more willing to eat what you offer them, and hopefully increasing their success rate in attempting to eat new foods. And lastly, generalization. We can't emphasize this enough. Once your child is able to eat certain foods, do have a plan to target generalization for the same food to be eaten in a different place, such as a restaurant, and even with different people. Eventually, the goal of eating should be generalized to different foods at different community places like school, restaurants, parks, parties, and so on, as well as with different people. Now it's your turn. Based on today's lesson, do you feel confident to start this process at home? If so, then do prepare the materials and get started. And don't forget the 3 key ABA strategies of breaking skills down, pairing with reinforcement, and providing sufficient practice. However, this can be quite a technical, detailed approach. And so if you do need guidance, do contact us for further support. And so that's it for this lesson. Join us in the next lesson as we discuss increasing nutrition for your child with autism. Stay tuned. Also, we thank you for your support, and with the amount of interest we have received online, we have actually started providing online services and have worked over the years with clients in other states of Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, Philippines, China, Kuwait, New Zealand, and Switzerland. So do scan the QR code below and get in touch with us for more information. If you haven't already, do check out our free online resource platform, Autism at Home, which has all the corresponding articles and downloadables for you. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay updated. Take care, and we will see you soon.